بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Jamaatul Muslimin, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as always for giving us the opportunity to attain knowledge. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us with every word, every letter, grant us closeness to Him. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. 2 weeks ago, we ended off with Surah Al-Alaq, and the last ayat that we mentioned was where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alladhi allama bil qalam. And we spoke about how the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, the start of his journey when it comes to the wahi, and the certain situations that the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam found himself in, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored mankind by giving them the opportunity to get this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by sending the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam as a guide for us to gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the last ayah that we should have ended off with on that night was the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. So the ayah before that, Allah says, الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ. And this we explained that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given mankind the tools in order to educate themselves. And Allah uses the term عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ, the one who taught mankind with the pen. Right? And if you look at majority of places where education is attained, it is through writing and through reading what people had written. So somewhere along the line there is a pen being involved in learning, and that is why Allah uses the pen as a means of learning or attaining knowledge. In the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught mankind things that they did not know. And the reality is that all knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it may be deen knowledge, whether it may be academic knowledge, whether it's medical field, engineering, or whatever the case may be. All knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know this to be true because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned to us in the Quran, after the creation of Nabi Adam, that Allah was the one that taught Nabi Adam everything that he knew. And throughout the years that mankind has been on this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired them with knowledge in order to create the things or to invent the things that we have in today's time. So all knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and here Allah shows the importance of it by mentioning it to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam taking it further and making sure that the Sahaba become knowledgeable in this dunya. And whether it is reading or writing or figuring things out, the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam made sure that there was that opportunity for them. And knowledge is so important, Jamaatul Muslimin, that the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says that one of the few things that is going to follow you after you die, meaning like the reward for it, is ilmun yuntafa'u bihi, is knowledge that you have taught someone, any form of knowledge, that you have taught someone, and they benefited from that knowledge, and they passed it on to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. For each person that utilizes that knowledge that you gave to someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you that reward after you have died. So therefore, having knowledge, passing on that knowledge, it is very important. And Allah makes emphasis on it when Allah says, when Jibreel came to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق. So read and learn how to read and teach those who cannot read. Right? So this was what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended for us as an ummah, not that we sit back and we let everyone do things for us. In Ashafak, if you look through the history, you will see that majority of the greatest scientists that was around were people that were Muslim. People that invented certain things that in today's time is a norm were Muslim people, right? In the medical field, even in aviation, right? Just now the other day I saw a picture where they mentioned about one of the Islamic scholars that invented, they call him the father of aviation, right? If we look at planes in today's time, you think it was created by some European or Westerner, or whatever the case may be. But it was actually, the idea and the knowledge of it came from a Muslim. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had honored him by giving him that knowledge. So all knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now speaks about mankind. And Allah says, كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى. Now, kalla here, the word kalla in Arabic means, like you would say, if you tell someone asks you to do something, you say kalla. It means like saying no, right? But in this term that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using it, kalla means verily, right? That it's something that it is true. That what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And Allah says, kalla innal insana la yatagha. Now, here are different interpretations of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about when it comes to insan. Because the next few ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Abu Jahl, right? And we all know Abu Jahl is one of the main, people that spread fasad on this dunya, right? One of the main people that stood against the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. But the majority of the ulama is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is speaking about all of mankind. Kalla innal insana la yatagha. That mankind, they will commit sin, right? And they will transgress. And what tughyan means, it means to go beyond the limit, right? So tughyan can be any form of me going beyond the limit of what is required or what is needed. For example, someone is hungry. The person is hungry, they go and they cook themselves some food. But now because, like they say in Afrikaans, your eye is bigger than your stomach, right? They end up making for 2 people. So they end up wasting that food. That is tughyan. They've gone beyond the limit that is needed. Sometimes you'll find in certain places where people maybe need to correct somebody in something that they did, parents to children. And maybe they just needed to give them, don't do this, don't do that. But instead they go beyond that limit and they beat him up, right? That is tughyan, right? So there are different places in where tughyan can be used. Even when it comes to our wealth, we spend on things that is not needed within our lives, things that we want. Right? There's a difference between want and need. So things that we want and we go past the things that we need. So there is tughyan within our wealth that we are abusing. So Allah says, innal insana la yatagha. There will be this transgression. They will go beyond the things that is needed for them. Even though we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about when it comes to our wealth, we spend it wisely. When it comes to our food, we eat a third for water, third for food, third for air, but we go beyond that. So Allah says the nature of mankind is to transgress. And that comes back to the part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us the option of tawbah. That we make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our shortcomings. But Allah says that the nature of mankind is tughyan, is to transgress. And then Allah says, an ra'ahu staghna. When does this happen? Is when the person sees that they start to become wealthy. Now there is istighna here can be used as wealth, meaning the person has a lot of money, or it can mean in condition, meaning the person has his condition around him, everything is sorted for him. All right? There's no need for him to go to anybody and ask anybody for help. And istighna means that you tell yourself that you are not in need of anyone. All right? You are not in need of people's help. You are not in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are self-sufficient. So you take yourself completely out of that option of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for assistance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, an ra'ahu staghna. It's a certain point that mankind gets to. And you will see that when people are poor and they don't have a lot, or they don't have, more than enough, you will find that they are very humble, they are quiet, they don't make themselves known. But the minute wealth comes in their way, then they start speaking out loud. Now they feel like they have a voice. Now they feel like they can tell people like they want to because they have this status or this place within the community. And the same thing applies when it comes to knowledge. Right? One of the ulama, he says that a student of deen, they're on 3 levels. He says the first one, tawadu'. They humble. And wallah, I can tell you this is the truth, because when you see students come to Cairo or other places even, the first couple of years that they are there, very humble. Oh, my name is so on and so on, very quiet, don't make a noise, nothing. They say the second stage is takabbur. Now they start to learn. I know my thing now, right? Nobody can tell me I don't know what is this and what is that. I know my thing. So they get to that level of takabbur. And the same thing happens when it comes to our wealth. We get to the level where we are first humble in what we have, then we go further up in the stages, we become takabbur. Now we got everything, right? Money talks. You want something, I get it for you, right? The same thing with knowledge, whether it may be in deen field or any other academic field. But you tend to come to the point where you think you know everything, and nobody can tell you you are wrong. And then they say the last point that a student comes to is halima annahu la ya'lam. That he gets to the point when he realizes that he doesn't really know much. Right? And that is the final stage. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about these people that feel they are not in need of Allah. Right? They are self-sufficient. And then Allah says, Inna ila rabbika ruj'a. That, remember at the end of the day, you are still going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This wealth that you have on this dunya, the status that you have on this dunya, it will mean absolutely nothing on the day when you are standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that day, la yanfa'u malun wala banun. Not your wealth, not your offspring, not going to help you on that day. Right? Illa man atallaha biqalbin salim. Except those who come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sincere heart. So here Allah gives us a warning and tells us, even though you have this wealth in this dunya, remember, ila rabbika ruj'a. You are going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there you're going to be questioned on where it is you spent your wealth and what it is you spent your wealth on. The Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, man human la yashba'an. That there are two types of people that will never be satisfied. All right? Talib al-ilm wa talib al-mal. A person who seeks wealth and a person who seeks knowledge. These are two types of people that will never be satisfied. Someone that is, they want to know what is going on, and this is a ni'mah, right? If you are someone that is eager to learn, it means that you are eager to know of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a good thing, right? So the Nabi says that there are two types of people. One side is good, the other side is bad. One side is eager for wealth. Everywhere they go, they try and make something out of something, just so they can have an extra buck or two in their pocket, right? The other one is, everywhere he goes, he tries to learn from whoever he comes across, because he's eager for that knowledge, he's thirsty for that knowledge, he's greedy for it. Right? And this was the Sahaba. The Sahaba was like that. If you look at Abu Huraira spent approximately, I think it was about 4 years with the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And look at all the ahadith that he has. Over 5,000 ahadith, right? There were certain cases where Abu Huraira used to stand outside of the house of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, waiting for him to come out, afraid to leave, he might just miss something. To the point that people used to come past him and hit him. What is wrong with you? Why are you standing here? Are you possessed by a jinn or something? And he would tell them, I'm not possessed by a jinn, but I'm hungry. Right? So he used to go to that extent of attaining knowledge. That he would stand there, his stomach is growling, he's on his last, he can't anymore, but he's standing there because he don't want to miss the opportunity of attaining knowledge from the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. The next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Abu Jahl. Right? And we know Abu Jahl, like I mentioned, was the biggest thorn that the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam has ever been hurt with. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى. Have you seen the one who denies? Yanha, right? If somebody comes to you and asks you for something, and you say no, that is yanha, right? You deny the person that thing. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى عَبَدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. Do you see the one that denies the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he wants to perform his salah? عَبَدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. And this was referred to Abu Jahl. Now Abu Jahl, we know, did things and said things to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, either to hurt the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam physically, use the people to hurt the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam physically, or he would hurt the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam with his words. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ إِن كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَىٰ أَوْ أَمْرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. So Abu Jahl, one day, he was sitting with the people of Makkah, and he said to them, هل يغفر محمد وجهه بين أظهركم. Then this hadith is narrated by Abu Huraira, the one we just spoke about. So he tells the people of Makkah, does Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, does he put his face on the dirt or on the sand while around you here and you are not worried? And they say yes, he does. And he says فقال واللات والعزى لئن رأيته يصلي كذلك لأطأن على رقبته. He says, so he makes a sumba, right, to his gods. He says واللات والعزى. He makes a qasam by his gods. And he says that if I see him making salah again and he's in sujood, that I will go and I will press my foot on his neck, meaning push his face into the sand further, right? وَلَعَفُرَنَّ وَجْهَهُ فِي التُّرَابِ فَأَتَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَهُوَ يُصَلِّي لِيَطَعَ عَلَى رَكْبِهِ. So the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was making salah one day by the Kaaba, and Abu Jahl came by. And here's his opportunity now to do what he said. And everybody's looking at him that is around there, because there was marketplaces in there, so everybody sees what is happening, right? And everybody used to come to the Kaaba to make ibadah, right? Even those people that were on different religions, they would come there as a pilgrimage. And there was no problem with whoever came from whatever religion they came with, but Abu Jahl specifically targeted the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So when came the time the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was making salah, and Abu Jahl went forward to go to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, all of a sudden he turns around and he starts running. And the people ask him, what is going on? Ma ba'aluka? What is wrong with you? And he tells them, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He says, Inna bayni wa baynahu khandaqan min nar. He says, as I came close to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, while the Nabi was in sujood, between me and him was a khandaq, right? A hole that was dug, and from there was fire coming out, right? And I saw these beings that were there with wings, and it made me afraid, and I turned around and I ran. And they say that he ran in such a way that he was covering his head as he was running, thinking that something might come and fall upon him, right? And this is how he ran away from the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam when he wanted to hurt the Nabi so badly. And everybody looking at Abu Jahl, this man that has all this takabbur, all this boasting, all this wealth, all these people that are following him, turns around and runs away from a man that is in sujood. And he runs away scared. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed Abu Jahl that don't come close to the Nabi. Right? There are people, there are malaika, and there is a Lord that is protecting this Nabi. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى. So yeah, Abu Jahl, he wanted to stop the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam from making salah, and this is where Allah says, عَبَدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى. Have you seen that the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam could possibly be on the straight path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Have you given him an opportunity to hear what is the message that he comes with? Because Abu Jahl, what he used to do was, whenever the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam would go around Makkah, and there would be different tribes coming in, and he would go and give them the message, Abu Jahl would come after the Nabi and scream that this is a madman, and this is a liar, and he's a disgrace to his family and his qabila, and everywhere the Nabi used to go. Right? This is how Abu Jahl was on the Nabi's toes. Everywhere. So Allah says, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى. Did you see that he is on the straight path, that he is guided? أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. And he is ordering people with taqwa. Right? With conviction, with complete conviction on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now speaks about Abu Jahl and says, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. Right? He comes, he lies upon the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, says things to make the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam looks bad, and then he turns away and he leaves. And then Allah says, أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. Does he not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees what it is he is doing? Does he not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the things that he is saying and the sins that he is committing? And there's a hadith where the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam had asked one of the people of Quraysh, and the reason why some of the ulama, they say, when Allah says, أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى, yeah, when Abu Jahl heard this ayah, he knew exactly who the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was speaking about. Because in a hadith, and this is a weak hadith, but in a hadith, the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam had asked one of the leaders of Quraysh, how many lords do they worship? And they told him that there is 6 fil ard, sittatun fil ard, wa wahidatun fil sama. That there are 6 gods that they worship on this dunya, and there is one in the heavens. So the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam asked him, who is the one that you go to for help? Who is the one that you ask, you beg for help? And they said, the one fil sama. Right? So there is an understanding that the people of Quraysh knew and they understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the Lord above all others. Right? But they still had these few statues that they worship for different reasons on the dunya. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah, Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara, he immediately knew who the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was referring to. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one that was watching him, what it is he's doing, what it is he is saying to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And then Allah says, كَلَّا لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ لَنَصْفَعًا بِالنَّاصِيَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a qasam here and says, verily, if he does not stop with these things that he is doing, right? لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ. If he does not put an end to it, the sins that he is committing, these lies that he is telling, If he doesn't put her into it, la nasfa'an bin nasiyah. Now there is two interpretations about this ending. One is, nasiyah is this part of your head here, right? That is, everybody agrees upon that. La nasfa'an bin nasiyah. In one narration, it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we will pull them by the hairs on their forelock. Right? We will drag them like that. We will drag him like that. And in another narration, it's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying on the day of Qiyamah, this part of his head will be black, it will be burnt. Right? La nasfa'am bin nasiyah. But one of the majority between the two is that he will be dragged. And the reason for this is because in that hadith that I mentioned, where he went close to the Nabi, Jibreel alayhi salam said to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, at least the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam told the Sahaba that if he had taken a step closer to the Nabi, the Malaika would have torn him limb from limb. If he had taken one step closer to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, they would have dragged him like a piece of cloth on the floor or a mat on the floor and took him apart limb by limb. Right? So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Abu Jahl, this is what's going to happen to you. Stop what you are doing. But what does Abu Jahl say? He says, if this is what's going to happen, Allah and the Nabi and all of the people going to come, the Nabi and Allah is going to come against me, I have my people. Right? And Allah says, Nasiyatin kadibatin khati'ah. Before that ayah that I'm getting to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this part of his head. And Allah says that it's Nasiyatin kadibatin khati'ah. That it's a one that lies and commits sin. The worst type of sin. And then Allah says, فَلْيَدَعُ نَادِيَ. Now, when the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam told Abu Jahl, or mentioned this ayah to Abu Jahl, because remember in that time, whenever there was gatherings, there was more than one person walking around. It's not like today's time when you send someone a message, then people don't hear about it. That time it was spoken out in the open. People used to have gatherings with one another. So when Abu Jahl heard this ayat, he said, no, Muhammad can come. Allah can come. I have all of these people here, Quraysh, that will follow me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, فَلْيَدَعُ نَادِيَ. Let him call his people. Let him call his people to come and save him. Who will we call? سَنَدَعُ الزَّبَانِيَ. We will call the keepers of hell. We will call the keepers of Jahannam for them. They want to come with their people. We will call the guardians of Jahannam. And they will come and they will deal with him. And the malaika of Jahannam are malaika that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken rahmah out of their hearts. They don't have rahmah because of the duty that they have. So the malaika of Jahannam are the most staunch of malaika. Allah says, let him call his people. We will call the gods of hell for him. سَنَدَعُ الزَّبَانِيَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, كَلَّا لَا تُطِعْهُ. Don't follow him. Don't obey him. لَا تُطِعْهُ. Don't obey what he's telling you. Alright? Don't leave off your salah. Stick to your salah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Stick to that closeness, that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter who comes your way. Because Allah will make sure that you are protected. Allah will make sure that you are defended. And Allah will make sure that you get out of there in the best possible manner. Stay in your salah. لا تطيحوا. وَاسْجُدْ وَقْتَرِبْ. And make sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the term وَاسْجُدْ وَقْتَرِبْ because sujood in our salah is one of the most important actions within our salah. The Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدِ لِرَبِّهِ وَهُوَ سَاجِدٌ. That the closest time that a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be, in terms of how close they are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the time that they are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the time when they are in sujood. And that is why the masajid is called masajid, because it comes from the word sujood. The masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was meant for a place for us to make sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why it is called masajid. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the places of worship for the Muslimin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the word masajid. Because the most, how do I put it now? I'm trying to get to a word that isn't too out there, but the most important point within our salah is our sujood. And that is why the Nabi also says that when you are in sujood, you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the things that you are going through. You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever it is you are struggling with, whatever it is you are trying to achieve, whatever it is you are trying to gain. You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that moment that you are in sujood. Because the Nabi says, it is the time when you are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jamaatul Muslimin, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all khair and barakah in this dunya and in the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us to walk with the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam in Jannatul Firdaus, Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And also because the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was told by a Sahabi, Ya Rasulullah, allow me to walk with you, accompany you in Jannah. And the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, that will happen for you as long as you make sure that you do plenty sujood. As long as you increase in your sujood, I guarantee you, you will accompany me in Jannah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all that honor, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all to be amongst the muttaqeen, wa min al-muhsinin, wa min ibadi salihin, wa akhir da'wana, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.